Again, much for coming on to our travel edition for today, where Lou will be taking us on a trip to Brazil. Thank you so much always for hosting today, and I'll be there at the end to assist with the trivia, where again someone will potentially win a prize today. Thank you so much for coming on, and the floor is yours, Lou.
Great, thanks, Alex. Well, I'm excited. I've learned a lot about Brazil. I have never been to Brazil, but what a fascinating place it is. So I look forward to others who've been there to share a little bit about that today. Let's start where we always start, though. It's a place that I have been, and that is the Department of Aging and Community Living right there in Northeast. So we're going to go from there. We're going to go to the airport, and we're going to do that by going to Union Station and then going over, same as always, we're going to Dulles Airport. Always easy to find because it's so big. Now, this is an interesting one. So if we're going to Brazil, and by the way, this is the opening country of our South America program. What direction, where do we go? Where's the next stop to go to Brazil for those of you who've been to Carnival and other places? Any idea? Where do we go to get to Brazil? Well, do we head west, east, north, or south?
If you leave out of Dulles, you're going to have to go north and then south. That's the only way Dulles flights go.
Oh, yeah, I guess I didn't think about that. So
They
you
go like
probably go
We can't hear.
just loop up and then go down. So
Yep.
yeah, so I think most flights to South America go through Miami. Miami is the main hub. Just about anywhere you want to go in South and Central America, you got to go to Miami. I'm a big Spirit Airlines guy, and we land in Fort Lauderdale like crazy, and they go all over the place from there. But Miami is where most flights leave out of. And then we're going to continue heading south. So imagine heading halfway around the world and staying in almost the same time zone. Pretty wild. So we're going to keep going south, 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 south. Most common place to land would be probably Rio de Janeiro. So where is Rio de Janeiro on this map? There it is. So we're going to land in Rio. So let's start off our trip with a little bit of history. Now, Brazil has a really interesting history, like intense history. It's intensely indigenous history, what they call indigenistas. It's got an intense African diaspora history, even more so than the United States. And it has an intense European history. And they all sort of collide in this one place. It makes it absolutely fascinating. So I'm going to stop sharing here. Just give me a sec. And I'm going to queue up the video and then I'll share it. So just a moment here.
Hello, everyone.
Okay. Just a moment. Okay, and here we go.
Welcome to Mr.
Alô, alô. Responde. Responde.
Everybody hear it okay?
You're good, Lou.
Okay.
This is South America, and here is Brazil. Now, vamos lá, shall we? Brazil is big, very big. And several thousands of years ago, its bigness became home to a number of tribes, such as the Tupi, a warlike people who came to dominate the coast, cultivating crops of cassava and cannibalizing their captives, assuming they'd absorb the strength of the unfortunate fellows they feasted on. This obviously didn't work as they were subdued by the Portuguese. You see, in the year 1500, the navigator Pedro Álvares Cabral discovered Brazil and claimed it for Portugal, but they neglected it for a while to focus on Asia, where more money was to be had. In the 1530s, Portugal's king directed stronger Portuguese colonial efforts in Brazil, and things started happening, such as sugarcane plantations, demand for the produce of which led to large-scale use of imported African slave labor. Then along came the Jesuits, led by Manuel Nóbrega, who built schools and churches and advocated the humane treatment of natives whom they converted to Christianity. Now, a certain Brazilian harbor had been overlooked by the Portuguese, and the French snapped it up, prompting Portuguese pushback, expelling the French and founding the city of Rio de Janeiro. Now, when Portugal was joined to Spain from 1580 to 1640, it naturally inherited Spain's enemies, including the Netherlands, who nibbled off a bit of Brazil for themselves, which was governed very wisely by this man, but not by his successors, and the Portuguese Brazilians reconquered the land, boosting Brazilian nationalism. Bandeirantes began burrowing deeper into the continent in search of slaves, gold, or grazing ground, and the journeys of those rough and rugged men, like this fellow, facilitated the expansion of Brazil's borders. Numerous economic, political, and societal alterations were inducted by Portugal's Prime Minister, the Marquis of Pombal, who embodied much of the European Enlightenment's philosophy and granted natives legal rights, while expelling the Jesuits, whose power and influence he resented. The Enlightenment also instilled ideas of revolution, driving one Tiradentes to plan a revolution for independence in 1789. But when one of his fellow conspirators was offered some tax relief, he betrayed the plot, and Tiradentes was hanged and cut into 4 pieces. After Napoleon invaded Portugal in 1807, the Prince Regent and his royal court fled to Brazil, and thus set up a Portuguese government in exile. The prince was welcomed in Brazil, and he set about reforming the country, opening it up to trade with other countries, and encouraging Brazilian manufacturing. But when the war in Europe ended, that continent began calling on the royal family to return. The royals didn't really want to, and simply made Brazil co-equal in status to Portugal, which angered the Portuguese at having their status made identical to a colony. Brazilians themselves were not happy, as they increasingly were demanding independence. John VI was essentially compelled by his bifurcated political stresses to return to the mother country, leaving his son Pedro behind as regent. But Portugal wanted Pedro too. Pedro refused, and on September the 7th, 1822, declared Brazil's independence, later being crowned emperor. After Portuguese forces were beaten and recognized Brazil's sovereignty, a number of other occasions of unrest arose, such as the war that saw the emancipation of Uruguay. Brazil prospered and thrived under the bright star that was Pedro II, himself a melancholy, complicated man, but also highly intelligent. He spoke 14 languages, and who patronized science and culture. He was just the sort of person to steer Brazil into greatness. Victorious in 3 wars in a row, Brazil's economy grew. Immigrants arrived from Italy, Spain, and Germany, and modernization appeared in railways, factories, steamships, telegraph communication, and the abolition of slavery. But, not seeing any promise in Pedro's potential heirs, the beloved popular emperor was quietly and unexpectedly overthrown in one of the most uneventful revolutions in history. He went into exile in Europe, where he died dreaming of Brazil. Shaky times followed as Brazil, the Republic, was led by dictators, but things got better. Rio was beautified, and Sao Paulo, glutted on wealth from coffee plantations, expanded considerably. Then the Great Depression happened. Then in 1930, one Getulio Vargas lost the presidential election, so he forced his way into power in a revolution. And this was wonderful. I mean, just look at this girl. Look how happy she is for the new totalitarian regime. But in all seriousness, Vargas strengthened Brazil's economy, helped the poor, and invigorated industrialization. Under President Juscelino Kubitschek, the sparkling modernist new capital Brasilia was inaugurated with its many unusual buildings. This is a church, for instance, designed by the visionary architect Oscar Niemeyer. Political turbulence saw a military dictatorship run Brazil from 1964 to 85, a time of mass censorship, repression, and violent crackdowns on suspected state enemies. But Brazil still managed to win the FIFA World Cup in 1970, led by the legendary Pelé. Problems like recession, inflation, debt, and so on were tackled by Cardoso. Remarkable growth was had under the popular Lula, who was nevertheless imprisoned for corruption. He was followed by Dilma Rousseff, who ended up impeached for fiscal misdeeds. 2019, meanwhile, saw the election of nationalist populist Jair Bolsonaro. Now, recent years have seen tens of millions of Brazilians lifted out of poverty, and we hope the crime-ridden shantytown favelas will one day be but a memory. Brazil is a country of many surprises, stereotypically the land of samba, carnaval, Copacabana Beach, football, and a 98-foot-tall statue of Christ the Redeemer overlooking Rio. It's also the land of the Amazon, the world's smallest frog, armadillos, the largest Japanese population outside of Japan, cities full of Germans still speaking their East Pomeranian dialect, and 21 UNESCO World Heritage Sites. Brazil, despite its tumultuous past, has given us some of history's greatest sports people and injury fakers, as well as great writers, composers, and scientists. It has attained a high Human Development Index and has the world's 9th biggest economy, receiving over 6 million tourists a year. But what awaits Brazil in the future? Comment below, but for now, bye-bye!
Well, that was interesting. Any comments from anybody about what we just saw?
Only comment I have, Lou, on that one, I always like how these folks said they discovered somewhere, how they discovered Brazil.
Oh, yeah.
And
Oh,
yeah,
yeah.
it just
Yeah.
always tickles me.
Yeah, we'll be talking a lot about that in this presentation.
Can I make one last, I'm sorry, one other comment,
course.
Lou?
Yeah.
For many years, even almost recent years, Brazil used to consider itself the only country in the world that had a quote unquote true racial democracy. Meaning all those folks they talked about how they all came to that country and mixed with the indigenous people, the slavery and et cetera, et cetera. And so they tend to believe that they have no issues there. And in the early 20th century, after they abolished slavery in 1888, all of the families, of course, they're like a lot of families that are, there's a lot of mixed different colors within your family. But if you go to Brazilians' homes today, you won't find photographs of darker skinned people. And I've been there, I was going there for many years, from the 90s until probably about 5 years ago. But, and I was learning while I was there about this racial democracy thing because I was so proud about it. But as I studied the history, I understood it better that it really wasn't true. It wasn't true at all. But it's a wonderful, beautiful country and wonderful, beautiful people. But they do have a strong, strong class system there and a colorized system as well.
Oh, wow. That's amazing that you went there so many times. Why was that?
Why was I going?
Yeah.
In those days, Lou, I thought I was a businessman. And I had friends who were doing business in Brazil. I lost a lot of money in the 90s trying to do business down there because at the time I didn't understand the concepts that I understand today. So that's why I was going so much. And then, of course, I was going because I really enjoyed being there. It's the kind of place that you can go to year round, and the weather's always nice.
Wow. Okay. Well, that's amazing to hear. Any other comments about Brazil so far? Looks like Brenda, you got your hand up.
Yes. The waterfalls. So many waterfalls going across that mountain. That was so pretty to me. It was just, I loved it.
Oh, yeah. Well, I got a video about that we're going to see in a second.
Okay.
And I was, as I was researching this, they were telling stories about how the elderly people, and I don't know how true it is, but it coincides with the story that you just heard, that like the grandparents would look at their children and their skin as it became lighter would be more featured in the family. And as you're saying about the pictures, they said apparently that's gone, that culture's gone, but it's something of past years. That was also in the videos I was watching.
I'm gonna raise my hand. Wait a minute.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, I raised my hand. I went one time to Brazil, but when I first got there, I was just so amazed. I know I must have had my mouth open. I had to have had my mouth open. The people were so beautiful. They were all different colors. And then they had different eye colors. I mean, you might be
Oh, wow.
a chocolate color with blue eyes, and
Oh,
you might
wow.
and then you might be another color with hazel eyes. It just amazed me. I just had to look and just watch the people. I did a lot of people watching because I was so amazed. And you eat. I only went one time, but I remember this one time I was eating dinner or whatever outside in the outside cafe, a restaurant or whatever. And the kids would come up to you and they would beg you for your food off your plate.
Oh, wow, my gosh.
Yeah, but they were so pretty. You had to give them something. I think I gave them money so they could go buy something because your money, went a long way, as I recall. And yeah, but I just remember the little kids would come up. You couldn't even eat in peace. but they would come up to you and beg off your plate. Uh-huh.
Well, thanks for sharing that. What an amazing story. And maybe one more story, and then I'll go on to the next video.
There was
Anything else?
my cousin is married to a Brazilian girl, and everybody in that family is a different color, a different shade, and they all have different colored eyes.
Hey,
And
wow.
I thought that was really amazing.
But everything I was reading, they all talked about how beautiful the people are down there.
Mm-hmm.
And it sounds like you all are in agreement of that. We've been there.
Yeah, that part I can, you know, I haven't seen a lot of Brazilians, but I've seen her family. They've been here to the States.
All right, well,
And
let me queue up the next one if I could here, because we got a lot to cover today. I might have to skip through some of these because there's just a lot to talk about.
Back at another video of African history, culture, and worldview. I wanted to begin talking more about diaspora history, so I'm going to begin with the most numerous group of Afro-descended people in the Americas, Afro-Brazilians. And as always, if you want to support the home team, you can do so on patreon.com. I have some new awards for you guys. All links to Patreon, Afrographics, and home. Unfortunately, Afro-Brazilians as a group occupy one of the lowest functions in Brazilian social and economic life. After the abolition of slavery, they continue to live much as they did before 1888. Many Afro-Brazilians live in the province of Bahia. Bahia has become one of the most globally recognized dwelling places for Afro-Brazilians. One of the reasons for this large Afro-Brazilian population in Bahia is because it was the only region that enacted a land distributive law in 1897. Even though this law was not specifically directed at Afro-Brazilians in particular, it still enabled many former slaves to acquire land in that area, hence becoming a sort of base for Afro-Brazilian culture to thrive. Also, many Africans were imported into Bahia directly, so it was a well-known drop-off spot for Afro-Brazilians. The legacy of slavery affected Afro-Brazilians heavily, just like many other groups of Afro-descendant people throughout the world. Slavery in the Spanish and Portuguese-speaking colonies was slightly different when it came to the children of enslaved African women and their slave masters. In North America, these children were largely ignored and seen as illegitimate, while in South America, the master was more likely to embrace his child and even pass down wealth and ownership to them. This created a culture in South America, especially in Brazil, in which Afro-descendant peoples sought the acceptance of Europeans or white Latinos. The following portrait is a great example of this, as it shows a Brazilian family becoming whiter, exemplifying the Afro-Brazilian reality as a whole, as a grandmother celebrates the cleansing of her grandchild's blackness. Although this has historically been true throughout Brazil, many Brazilians, especially today, are beginning to remove that stain of self-hatred and embrace their African ancestry. There is no doubting the unique history of Afro-descendant people in Brazil. One of the reasons why Afro-Brazilians are so unique is simply because no other nation in the Western Hemisphere outnumber the amount of enslaved Africans taken to that country. It's estimated that about 37% of all enslaved Africans sent to North America, South America, and the Caribbean all came to Brazil. So in a sense, Brazil can be seen as the center of the African diaspora, that is, of course, outside of Africa. So where did Afro-Brazilians originally come from? Well, we have several documented and cultural proofs about where they originally came from. Afro-Brazilians descend mostly from West, Central, and Southern African populations, like most others in the diaspora. But it's important to note some of the most influential groups of Africans that dominated and influenced the Afro-Brazilian culture. These groups of Africans consisted of various peoples like the Mbundu, Bakongo, Yoruba, and Muslim Africans like the Hausa and Fulani. Some Africans imported to Brazil were Muslims who could write and speak in the Arabic language. Ironically, some enslaved Afro-Brazilians were more educated than their masters because some Portuguese and Brazilian masters couldn't even read or write in Portuguese. In fact, arguably the most significant slave rebellion in Brazil was started by a group of enslaved Muslim Africans known today as the Malay Revolt. The other influential group of Africans that make up Afro-Brazilian culture comes from the Yoruba. The influence of Yoruba culture is well known throughout Brazil, as many Afro-Brazilians still venerate the Yoruba pantheon of deities. Full-blown festivals and celebrations put the Yoruba pantheon and Yoruba culture on full display as they honor the memory of their ancestors. Another influential group of Africans in Afro-Brazilian culture comes from the Congo. The Mbundu martial art of Ngolo was used and transformed into capoeira by Afro-Brazilians. Capoeira went on to be one of the national icons of Brazil, and perhaps is the most recognizable aspect of all Brazilian culture worldwide. One of the most prominent religions among Afro-Brazilians, aside from Catholicism, is Candomblé, a religion they formed from the memory of their ancestors. The Candomblé religion is a set of beliefs, practices, and cosmology introduced by Yoruba slaves and freedmen. The first houses of Candomblé, temples of worship dedicated to the Yoruba gods and goddesses, were established in early 19th century Bahia, founded by 3 freed African women, Iya Detta, Iya Kala, and Iya Naso. The Ngenho Velho was the mother of Bahian Candomblés. It was clearly established by 1830, and some accounts trace its existence to the mid-1700s. To ensure the orthodoxy of this early temple, several founding members returned to Nigeria, spent some years in the city of Ketu studying the fundamentals of Yoruba religion, and then returned to take their place at Ngenho Velho. Later, a fractious dispute over the leadership of the Ngenho Velho resulted in the establishment of a second house of worship, the Gantios, another of Bahia's pedigree temples. This was followed by another power struggle and the founding of still another house of Candomblé, this by the famous Mai de Santo Ania at Axe Opo Ofonja. These 3 Candomblés, Ngenho Velho, Gantios, and Axe Opo Ofonja, which were founded by women and which rigidly maintained the ritual and ceremony of the Yoruba, served as models as well as progenitors for many of the temples presently seen in Bahia, the majority of which are still led by women. Despite the immense influence of Afro-Brazilians on Brazilian culture, they still suffer from mass oppression, social and economic. The average view of the Afro-Brazilian can be seen through how they're portrayed in popular culture or cinema in general. Similar to how African Americans have been portrayed in Hollywood historically, Afro-Brazilians suffered from the same indignities. Summing up the portrayal of Afro-Brazilians in cinema, one Brazilian scholar identified various characteristics and representations that define the Afro-Brazilian image. These include the old black sage, the black mammy, the black martyr, the noble savage, the rebellious black, the rogue black, the slum dweller, the crazy black, and the subservient black. Most of these being very negative, as you can see, only serving the needs and concerns of white Brazilian society. Honestly, to say that Afro-Brazilians made Brazilian culture wouldn't even be an overstatement in my personal opinion. They influenced nearly every inch of Brazilian culture, music, dance, and even the Brazilian language itself. The Afro-Brazilian influence on Brazilian Portuguese is very underreported. It's not as evident in formal Brazilian Portuguese, but it's fundamental to popular Brazilian Portuguese. The popular speech of the average Brazilian is full of African traces. Furthermore, the spice and flavor of Brazil, better known as samba, the very thing that makes Brazil unique, is due to the genius of Afro-Brazilians. In other words, Brazil really didn't become Brazil until the Africans arrived there. Well, I'm all out, guys. If you like these videos and want to help out in its continued production.
All right, folks. Well, any comments about that, especially those who've been to Brazil?
Well, he said that Brazil really didn't, oh yeah. He said that Brazil really didn't become Brazil until the Africans got there. That's an interesting statement.
Yeah, it sure is.
I'll share something with you, Lou, that I'd been told about it, but I had not experienced it until this one particular time. And it was probably maybe around about 2007, thereabouts. And I was with some friends there, some lighter hue complexion, some darker, much darker than I am. And as we're walking, and we get to this restaurant, and me and the American guys, we're like in front, and the lighter Brazilian is up front with us. And all of a sudden, we turn around. The darker skinned Brazilians are no longer with us. So I'm like, where are they? Where are they? They could not come in. And I had not experienced that. I'd been told about it, but I had not experienced it. And the other thing I learned there, it's very similar to how America is and or was. The children play together until they get a certain age, darker and lighter kids. They play together until they get about 11 years of age, maybe going to 12. At that age, the darker skinned kids begin to go and work in the fields or in the houses of the more well-to-do folk. And the lighter skinned kids get a chance to go to follow their education, school, college, etc. And that's during this time in the 21st century. It still exists.
Damn.
It was kind of interesting to me to being there. It's just a whole lot I learned. I learned a whole lot in the many years I was going there. But it's still a beautiful place. Beautiful place.
Thank you so much for sharing that. You know, I got a few more videos I got to run through, and there's a lot of good discussion we can have. Let me run through those first, if you don't mind. So we have this very powerful African diaspora element to Brazil. Another very, very powerful element to Brazil is I'm about to play.
This video is brought to you by Cheddar, who recently launched their own YouTube channel that makes videos about business, technology, and media. Check out their video about the solution to disappearances in the Bermuda Triangle next. If you look at Earth today, you'll find that there are 7.4 billion humans living on it, including you right now watching this video. About half of all of us on this planet are currently connected to the internet, which means that we can instantly communicate with billions of other people all around the world whenever we want to. But despite how much progress in technology the rest of the world we experience has made, there still exist today hundreds of tribes consisting of thousands of people who live just like our ancient ancestors did 10,000 years ago, and many of them have no idea that the outside world, our world, exists. Most continents don't have anybody living on them who are completely unaware of modern civilization. The last Native American in the United States who lived most of his life completely removed from American culture was found in 1911, and the last uncontacted Aboriginal hunter-gatherers in Australia were found and contacted just in 1984. So there's only a handful of places left in the world where you can still find these uncontacted people. A handful in the Congo Basin of Africa, a few on the Andaman Islands in the Indian Ocean, and several on the Pacific island of New Guinea. But by far the vast majority of uncontacted people remaining in the world, 97% of them, are currently living on the South American continent, primarily in the deep, dark, and hard-to-get-to parts of the Amazon rainforest. Over 100 tribes consisting of thousands of people have been living here generation after generation for thousands of years, ever since humans first arrived on the continent roughly 15,000 years ago. But how can it be that so many of these people still don't know about our modern world? The answer largely has to do with geography. The Amazon rainforest is enormous, larger than the entire Indian subcontinent, but with a population under 20 million, meaning that several cities across the world have more people than that. The reason so few people live here is because really, why would anybody want to? It's covered with extremely dense forests, dangerous wildlife, and historically has never really been developed by any modern civilization. There's only one bridge across the entire length of the Amazon River, and the largest city in the region, called Manaus in Brazil, is primarily only accessible by boat or by plane. The rest of the Amazon interior is even more difficult to access, so the uncontacted people who live here are both difficult to actually reach, and it's difficult for them to leave even if they wanted to. The other reason why they still exist is because the governments of the countries whose territory they live in have decided to leave them alone and refrain from first contacts, because previous attempts to contact isolated tribes has ended in catastrophe. When Europeans first started arriving in large numbers to the New World after Columbus's discovery in 1492, 80% to 95% of the indigenous population of the Americas died within 1 150 years, mostly due to diseases like measles and smallpox brought by the European conquerors. The indigenous people who had lived for thousands of years separated from the rest of the world had not developed the immunities to diseases the Europeans did by living side by side with animals like cattle and pigs. When the Europeans arrived, the natives stood no chance to the biological cancer that ravaged their continent, and the surviving uncontacted tribes of today face that exact same problem when encountering us. A tribe in Colombia, for example, was contacted a few decades ago by modern anthropologists, but the tribe's population was cut down to less than half its size, simply because of diseases the anthropologists accidentally exposed them to. In addition to that, first encounters with isolated tribes can sometimes result in violence. Clashes in Ecuador between uncontacted tribes and loggers cutting down the forests around them erupted in 2006 and 2007 that left 30 tribespeople and 10 loggers dead. Loggers, oil prospectors, drug traffickers, and hunters all occasionally stumble upon an uncontacted tribe in the jungle by accident still today, and the resulting encounters can obviously end up being pretty tense. There's a man who lives in the Amazon in Brazil called the loneliest man in the world, an indigenous, uncontacted man who lives alone and is believed to be the last surviving member of his tribe. The language he speaks is unknown, as is the name of the tribe he once belonged to, and his existence first became known about in 1996. The Brazilian government sent numerous expeditions to find him that all failed until 2007, and when they finally encountered him, he shot one of them in the chest with a bow and arrow. Later evidence found what was believed to be his old village, bulldozed and destroyed by illegal loggers or settlers. After this incident, the Brazilian government declared a 42 square mile exclusion zone around him that's illegal for anybody to trespass into. He's the only human that exists in that entire area, and it's illegal for anybody to visit him. And he's still there because video was taken of him this year in 2018 cutting down a tree. The Brazilian government maintains a policy today of zero contact with uncontacted peoples, but maintains occasional flyovers to check up on their numbers and how they're doing, which can yield some incredible photographs like these. We can only speculate about what these people must be thinking at the sight of seeing an airplane flying above them, but imagine for a moment if Earth was considered an uncontacted area by some advanced alien species. They may treat us the same way that we treat our uncontacted peoples. We limit our contact out of respect for their own safety, but maintain occasional flyovers for checkups and to satisfy our own curiosity. Curiosity about the unknown is always fascinating to humans. It's just part of what makes us who we are. My friends at Cheddar have created.
All right, great. Any comments about that, folks? Well, I think it's interesting how, vivid the culture is in Brazil to have such incredible differences between people, yet all be in the same geographic area. Also, the similarities with Papua New Guinea and the other uncontacted tribes we talked about last week. And the other statistic that really stood out to me is that 97% of all the uncontacted people are in the Amazon. So all those tribes we talked about from all the other places only constituted 3%. That's amazing.
Wow.
So that's what jumped out at me. Also, the thought that yeah, us contacting them would create the same annihilation of them now as it did hundreds of years ago when the explorers first came onto this continent. How important it is to stay away from them for their own sake.
Disease carrying, all those diseases that the explorers tend to take to these various areas.
Yeah.
50% of the people die because of the diseases they never had before. That's interesting.
Dang.
All right, great. Well, I worked at World Vision for years, and we had a contract with the Brazilian government to support the indigenistas. I wasn't working on that contract, but it certainly involved no contact. There was other forms of support that the government provided them, but they really policed that no contact part of it. All right, so this has all been about the past and the history, and we only have a few minutes left, so let's get going on what it's like today. Here we go.
famous for being home to one of the world's top football teams, the Rio de Janeiro Carnival, and the remarkable Iguazu Falls, Brazil is an exciting world travel destination. As South America's largest country, Brazil covers a majority of the continent's northeastern region and borders all of its countries except for Chile and Ecuador. From the Amazon rainforest in the north to the tropical beaches along the Atlantic to the Pantanal wetlands and the vibrant metropolises of the southeast, there are plenty of interesting places to visit in Brazil. Number 10. Ouro Preto. Tucked away among the mountains of Minas Gerais, Ouro Preto is the most picturesque and well-preserved colonial town in Brazil. As it was one of the main centers of the Brazilian gold rush, wealth and riches poured into its streets, along with the power and prestige that came with it. Wandering around the cobbled streets in the old town is like stepping back in time, and the 18th century churches dotted along the hilltops only add to the beauty of the scene. Number 9. Sao Paulo. The largest city in Brazil, Sao Paulo, offers an intense cultural experience. Tropical plants, charismatic people, and lively, bright colors, sounds, and scents surround every traveler here from the moment they step from the plane. It is a melting pot city and has large integrated populations of Italian and Japanese cultures, among others. This fusion of culture has created a beautiful combination of art, culinary scene, and music that are well worth exploring. Number 8. Paraty. A paradise of tropical forests, waterfalls, emerald sea, and coastal mountains, Paraty is a popular tourist destination located along Brazil's green coast. The heart of Paraty is its historic center, with cobbled streets and multicolored colonial houses, many of which now serve as bed and breakfast accommodations. Some of the most visited attractions here are the 2 colonial defense forts that still boast original walls and cannons. The area surrounding Paraty is a nature lover's paradise, offering some of southeastern Brazil's prettiest coastal and mountain scenery. Number 7. Chapada Diamantina National Park. Created in 1985 to protect and preserve its spectacular scenery and rich ecosystems, Chapada Diamantina National Park lies in the northeast of Brazil, in the center of the state of Bahia. Popular among nature lovers and outdoor enthusiasts, the park encompasses everything from dramatic mountain ranges and sweeping valleys to teeming rivers and towering waterfalls. Top attractions in the park include the incredible blue waters of the Enchanted Pool and Brazil's highest fall, where the water does not have sufficient volume to overcome the drop of 380 meters. Number 6. Pantanal. The Pantanal is the world's largest wetland, lying mostly in western Brazil, but extending into Bolivia and Paraguay as well. Famous for its wildlife, it is one of Brazil's major tourist attractions. Unlike the Amazon rainforest, in the Pantanal, you are virtually guaranteed to actually see the wildlife. Capybara and caiman are present in the millions. The Pantanal is also home to one of the largest jaguar populations in the Americas. Number 5. Florianopolis. The capital of Santa Catarina state, Florianopolis lies in the south of Brazil, with half of the city set on the mainland and the other half on a beautiful island. Due to its scenic setting, it is a very popular tourist destination and is widely considered one of the best places to live in the country. Florianopolis is a modern city with lots of large shopping malls and chic restaurants. Number 4. Manaus. Located right in the heart of the rainforest, Manaus's location makes it the prime destination for adventurers looking to explore the Amazon. While the city itself isn't very pretty, the natural wonders of the rainforest lie tantalizingly nearby, and you are much better off heading into the jungle as soon as possible to explore its wilderness. Manaus is a large city, however, so there are a couple of places worth visiting, such as the amazing Opera House and the Meeting of the Waters, where two different colored parts of the Amazon River meet. Number 3. Salvador. With its beautiful old town that showcases a delightful array of colonial architecture, Salvador is certainly a charming city to behold. Its rich Afro-Brazilian culture and vibrant art scene shine through, and it's an intoxicating place to be, particularly during Carnival. Located on the huge All Saints Bay, the city's setting only adds to its attractiveness. While the Old Town with its cobbled streets and historic sites is the highlight of Salvador, the feel about the place is infectious, and its unique culture has greatly impacted Brazilian society around the country. Number 2. Iguazu Falls. Made up of some 275 different cascades, falls, and drops, Iguazu Falls on the Argentine-Brazilian border is the world's largest waterfall system. As such, it is the only waterfall that can rival or possibly even surpass Victoria Falls. For almost 3 kilometers in total, gorgeous falls course over the Parana Plateau, with the undoubted highlight being Devil's Throat Canyon. This is best witnessed from the Brazilian side's viewing platform, where you are greeted with teeming sheets of water, a deafening roar, and a fine spray. With lush rainforests lying around it, the falls are a treat to visit. Visitors can take boat trips along the Iguazu River or explore the nearby paths and trails. Number 1, Rio de Janeiro. One of the most beautiful cities on earth, Rio de Janeiro is simply incredible to behold. With the famous Copacabana Beach curving gently along the shores of Guanabara Bay and Christ the Redeemer stretching towards the heavens, it really is a picture-perfect place. Complementing this majestic scenery is the sun-soaked beach of the Ipanema, as well as the tropical forest-covered mountains and brightly colored favelas that dot Brazil's second largest city. A happening city, the best time of the year to visit is during its famous carnival, when Rio is transformed into the party capital of the world.
All right, any comments about what we just saw, folks?
Lou, I was terrified when that daredevil was sitting on those rocks.
Yeah, no,
I saw the carnival type thing that reminded me of carnival time and festivities in New Orleans, and I see a similarity.
Yeah,
the water
and the water was gorgeous too. That was just beautiful.
That waterfall was absolutely beautiful.
Yeah, amazing. Is Carnival's the same size as isn't it the same holiday as was it Fat Tuesday or whatever it is? Isn't it the same?
Mardi Gras. Mardi Gras.
And maybe it's because I think Brazil has the largest population of Catholics in the world, so maybe that's what.
Yeah, they do.
All right, folks. Well, I'm gonna get the trivia fired up. So here we go.
All right, everyone. So the way we have is that everyone is muted, and if you would like to answer one of Lou's trivia questions, excuse me, you must raise your hand in Zoom. So can I get everyone in Zoom to please hit more at the top right, and then you can tap raise hand just to practice, but also raise your hand if you enjoyed Lou's session today. I know I learned a whole lot just listening to your comments in the video. So please raise your hand to practice for our trivia, and if you enjoyed Lou's presentation today. Then you tap more at the top right, then you tap raise hand. Thank you.
Okay, here we go, folks. We're gonna fire it up.
Yep, don't forget to lower your hand. Thank you so much.
Okay, everybody lower your hands so we can get it started. There we go. First question. What amazing feat in sports did Brazil win more than any other country? Harold, looks like. Sorry, Alex, you got to do the calls.
It's okay. Go ahead.
The amazing feat in sports soccer.
And what was the amazing feat itself?
Oh. Don't know that one, Lou.
You're close, but not quite there. Give me the amazing feat.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Harold. Geraldine?
World Cup.
Bing, 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 bing,
Oh, good job, Geraldine.
Very good.
Good
All
job.
right, question 2. I think we got 5 questions today. Question 2, congratulations. Question 1 winner. Question 2. They actually gave this away in the movie, and I didn't realize it. Brazil shares a border with every South American country with the exception of 2. What are those 2 countries?
You like to answer that question? Raise your hand and Zoom. Let's see, Anne. What are those 2?
Chile and Ecuador.
Bing, 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 bing.
Oh, good job, Anne.
Chile
Good.
and Ecuador. Good job. Good job, Anne.
Thank you. You and Geraldine are in the running for a prize today. Thank you so much.
Okay, next question. Rio de Janeiro was once the capital of which country?
Okay. Mr. Harold?
Portugal.
Portugal. Isn't that a fascinating fact? That Rio was once the capital of a European country.
Running away from home?
Yeah. I guess that's when Napoleon invaded, and and they moved the capital to Rio de Janeiro.
Yep.
I did not know that.
Isn't that an amazing story?
Thank you, Mr. Harold. You're
and didn't want to come back home.
Today. Thank you.
All right.
We had 4 hands up for that question, so that was really, really close. You all appreciate you all so far.
Next question. Brazil is the world's largest exporter of what agricultural product?
Okay, Brenda, what is your answer?
Soybeans.
It's a good guess, but no, not that one.
Okay.
Thank you, Brenda. Mr. Harold, really appreciate you participating. Cassandra, what do you think is the answer?
Coffee, sugar, and soy.
Oh.
Bing, 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 bing. Coffee.
Good job, Cassandra. Thank you so much.
As long as I
Thank you.
the payments, they're not gonna say my right.
Very good, very good. So Cassandra, was the right answer all 3 of those? Because my research only showed 1. All right. Well, anyway, unfortunately, in this contest, the answers are always the ones that I've got, even if I'm wrong. Sorry about that. All right, but we got coffee here. Next question. I think this is the last one. Get ready. Oh no, second to the last. How many uncontacted tribes are there in Brazil? Remember Papua New Guinea, there were 40. And we know that there's more in Brazil, so it's more than 40. How many?
Again, I appreciate you, Cassandra and Anne. Let's see if someone else would like to try. I appreciate that. Okay, Brenda, what is your answer?
I'd say approximately 100.
Oh, good guess. A little lower though.
Okay.
Okay, thank you, Brenda. Miss Hill, what do you think is the answer? You gotta hit. There you go.
75. 75.
You know, I'm going to say yeah, because the question is approximately, and the right answer is 70. But they're not sure. Even the research I said, they said about 70. So 75 is close enough. Congratulations.
Oh, thank you.
Miss Hill, appreciate that. Again, you're also
Okay.
in the running for a prize. Wow, good job, everyone.
Last question. Here we go. What is the name of that dish?
Looks pretty good. I see why you saved this one for last.
Yeah, right. I got to get some food.
Um, again, thank you so much, Cassandra. We notice and appreciate your participation. Janelle and Bridget, what is your answer?
I would say chili con carne.
Oh, no. Good guess, though.
Okay.
Thank you, Bridget. Um, let's see. Okay, Brenda McManus, third time's the charm. What is your answer?
I'm going to say Felgelia, Felfeijoda. I don't know if I'm pronouncing it correctly. No.
Ding, 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 ding,
Oh.
ding, ding, ding.
Black beans
All
too. You could have
right,
said
good
black beans.
job. All right, Alex, take us home. Take us home.
Wow. That was really good. Thank you so much, everybody. And I really appreciate everyone's participation. So I'm gonna go ahead and put our names into our wheel, of course. We have Miss Geraldine, Miss Ann, Mr. Harold, Miss Cassandra, Miss Brenda Hill, and Miss Brenda McManus in the running for a prize today. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and let's see who wins today's prize. But again, learned quite a bit today and I really appreciate all of your participation. And of course, you all answered all those questions. So, you know, that's a really great thing. I'm going to go ahead and count down and see what if one of these lovely folks can win a prize today. So 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go. Congratulations, Brenda Hill. You have won a prize today. Congratulations. Yes, thank you so much
Yay,
for your gift.
Brenda.
Thank you, Brenda.
Thank you.
Yes, today you won a stylus pen too that you could use with your iPad. So
All
congrats.
right, Brenda.
Thank you. Thank you.
No problem, Brenda. Thank you so much for coming on and appreciate your participation today.
Hey, Alex, I got a quick announcement if I could with the group, and I'll be real quick.
Mm-hmm.
This afternoon, I'm buying tickets for to go to Tanzania, and it's a wild tech trip that we do once a year. We're going to start doing to go to Africa, and I want to float an idea out of possibly having one of our seniors be our reporter. You know, maybe posting pictures to Facebook that I email them or videos or things like that. We haven't decided exactly what that might be yet, but you all think about it. We could talk about it again next week. You know, I'm looking for some help to get put onto social media some of the pictures of the tribes we work with and some of the work that we're doing and to be able to post it and make it visible. And wouldn't it be great if our senior team could do that? We don't know yet exactly what that's going to look like, but I just want to put it out there. It'll be the last 2 weeks of May that we're going to be there. All right. Thanks, everybody. All yours, Alex.
Thank you, Lou, so much. Thank you for the idea. We'll certainly find a way what we can do on our end. I will see you all next Friday at 12 o'clock for our another country in South America. So just make sure you check out our daily emails for where we'll be visiting. But let's all thank Lou for hosting today's session, and I will see you all at 1:30 for our module. Have a
Way to
good
go, Lou. Thank you.
All right, have fun.
Thank you.
Show, Lou. Thank you
Thanks,
much. Thank
everybody.
you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you,
Bye
everybody.
bye.
Lou.
Bye, everybody.
See you all soon.
Okay.
Bye,
Okay.
Lou.
Bye bye, Lou.
Bye,
Okay.
bye.
Have a good weekend.
You're a
Bye.
bad
Bye
man, Lou.
bye.
Great session. Enjoyed it.
See y'all later.
Lou, yeah.